Hi, I'm Darren Long from Delta Harbour Assets, and on this week's Hard Money Show, we're going to talk about the things that everyone is afraid to discuss. Where is inflation taking us? Is gold and silver going higher in 2022? Is that almighty housing market in Canada going to stay alive and well? That and much, much more, and we want to welcome you to Hard Money with Delta Harbour Assets.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey everybody, welcome back to Hard Money. Good to have you along this week. We are creeping towards the end of 2021. Getting a hold of Darren at Delta Harbour, really simple, deltaharbor.com, Harbor with a U. Because this investment is all about you. We're talking the world of precious physical metals, gold and silver. Reach out for more information, how you attain those and open up your portfolio to said metals. Phone number works as well, right? 1-877-323-GOLD. Anytime at all. Talk to Darren, talk to Rob, Roy, the crew. Ready to walk you through, hold your hand, enlighten you, educate you, due diligence about what this entire investment can do for you and how it works. But you just got to reach out, have a simple 10-minute phone call, 30-minute phone call, whatever, but get educated and do it. Okay, Darren, I did mention right there that we're getting close to the end of this year in all way, shape, or form. Some of us are, well, all of us are going, hope 2022 is a lot better in many respects, but we started on the review last week's show, and this week, what a great chance to start talking about 2022. So is 2022 the year we finally confirm that we are in the Rod Serling Twilight Zone? Is this going to be the year? Or as some people say, 2022. We're hoping it's not that. But what do you think?
Well, I think no matter which way we slice it, and I'll welcome our viewers to this week's show because 2022 is the Twilight Zone. Let's call it what it is. I mean, I was trying to think of ways in my head that I could say or dispel that myth, that idea, but it is. Now, when it comes down the pipe, this week's show, we have to talk about the things that unfortunately are going to be in the way of good things that we can do financially and good positions we can be in, where we can put our head down the pillow and go to sleep at night knowing that our traditional investments are doing all right, because 2022, I believe, is going to put 2021 and 2020 to shame. Unfortunately, but we can be prepared. That's the whole idea of having this show. In Canada, I mean, we have the largest amount of debt and money ever spent by a government historically. We're dealing with that right now in the throes of it. We get gobs of inflation, and this inflation pressure is pushing everything from gas to housing to clothing, food on our table. 2022 possible recession. It's on the table. The cards could fall that way. It just depends what they turn on the flop. I tell you, there's a lot of people talking now a whole different story than what they were just a few months ago with respect to recession. So that is always a threat. And there's a housing boom. We're in the middle of this twilight zone in housing, John. That's basically got everybody thinking the only and best investment that we should ever put our money in is housing. And we're going to disprove that myth right now on this show this week. We've got wage stagnation to deal with next year. We've got an overbought stock market. We've got quantitative easing that's ending. I mean, the bond market is not going to be as good as it was this past year, the year before, with these low interest rates starting to rise. And who knows what we're going to have on the COVID front, John? 4th, 5th, 6th waves? I have no idea anymore. People are just burnt out. But this is exactly when trouble hits, John. This is when the fallout from mismanagement of our country's tax dollars and systems and the artificial stability of lower interest rates hits. And this is going to kick us right in the rear end and remind us that, in fact, we can lose a lot, and we do stand to lose a lot. These concerns drive me every single day, John, towards owning assets above and beyond my real estate, above and beyond my stock portfolio, above and beyond my traditional assets. I own physical gold and physical silver.
Again, 1-877-323-GOLD. Anytime to reach out to Darren and the team, and deltaharbor.com, also deltaharbor.com on YouTube, or Delta Harbor on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram as well. Follow along on all those social media platforms. You did right at the top there, that laundry list of things that we're headed for, possibly in a worse state in 2022. Inflation, my gosh. I mean, in terms of inflation, is this as big as a threat as you make it out to be?
It is, and we spent a good chunk of time over the last quarter, John, talking about this particular topic. As you know, we've talked about the idea of what inflation means to us and how we've seen it and witnessed it in everyday lives for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And the reality is that we are dealing with a very inflationary future. Now the governments around the world are no longer talking transitory. So let's get that straight for a moment, right? Why else would the world's largest government in the US want to change the way they measure the consumer price index, the CPI, or inflation? And of course, they want to change it. The US government and others around the world are all looking at these equations they use to determine what inflation is. Typically, we use the CPI. But this ultimately is something that we've seen before. Back in the 90s, in the Clinton era, they changed it, right? I mean, let's not forget the world's largest economy in the US does not factor into their CPI equation the rising cost of house. They just don't do it. It's not part of the equation. It's the most silliest thing in the world. Yeah. But that equation has been changed many, many times in the 70s, again in the 90s. And the fact is that if we were to look at what a traditional measurement of inflation is before that 1990s last time it changed, we'd be seeing 10-12% inflation at street level right now, which is horrid, because is your wage increasing 10-12%? I don't think so, right? Is your cost of living going to continue to go higher? Yep, it is. You know, face it, you gotta surround yourself with quality assets in your portfolio, in your wealth strategy, and that wealth strategy has to target 9, 10, 11% as a bare minimum. It's got to be looking for assets that contribute to that. Gold and silver, perfect 2 assets, especially when you think about the need to diversify and own something else other than your traditional stocks, bonds, and cash. And it's an incredible point, John, because it's true that inflation was always misunderstood by the public because, of course, they were lied to. Right? Our government has done nothing but lie to us about inflation and about these pressures that we face. And, you know, our bankers, our government, all of them just, you know, connive together to come out on the other side of this. And the 1%, the 2%, the 3%, the top end of the elite always come out shining, like smelling like roses. But ultimately, we're looking at a situation that's going to affect us heavily. It's not transitory. It does not take into consideration, as I said, the cost of housing. Inflation is 10% plus right now, easily across the board if we look at the average overall situation. And disposable income, to make matters worse, John, is expected to drop despite the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of unfilled positions in Canada. And this is what inflation does to an economy, especially when interest rates are about to rise. And that list goes on and on. So we want to have more flexibility in our wealth strategy. We want to have a better roadmap laying ahead for us with flexibility and diversity. And that means we should own quality hard assets like physical gold and physical silver.
Got a break in a minute or so, but I want to get started on this. I know we'll come back to it after the break, but housing, I mean, you mentioned, and I'm sure listeners are wondering, they want to know about 2022. Are we finally going to see the house prices fall? Because it's been a one-way ticket up so far. It's scary. I mean, does the housing crisis come to blows in any way, shape, or form that you can see?
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you look at it from a very practical standpoint, the election was just over 80 days ago. In that time, the typical GTA property has increased by about 31,000. In Toronto, the average detached has inflated another 90,000. And if this pace continues by next November, that same detached house will cost just over an average of 2.3 million, having appreciated roughly around 430,000 at this pace we're currently on. So the only conclusion I have, and we'll talk about it a lot more when we come back, as well as how to open up an account and get some gold and silver in your portfolio, is that housing is out of control. And I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are as to whether or not we do see a pullback in housing prices.
Stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss it for sure. You have opinions, you want to reach out anytime to Darren, you can do so. 1-877-323-GOLD and deltaharbor.com. Harbor with you. This investment's all about you. Again, talking about physical gold and silver, not paper assets. We're talking the real thing, the metal. We'll give you more details on exactly what that means as well after a short break. And we'll continue Hard Money here on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back to Hard Money. Darren Long here, John Scholes as well. You want to reach out to Darren at Delta Harbour, deltaharbor.com. Harbor with you is the way to make first contact and talk about that investment in gold and silver, physical metals. 1-877-323-GOLD. Simple number to remember as well. Back from the break, Darren. We're just getting into the topic of housing and what's going to happen in 2022, forecasting more unaffordability until eventually things come crashing down. You mentioned that a potentially, a detached home could be 2.3 million around these parts. That is no word short of mental. It's insane.
That's average price, right? That's average price. That's not average high. That's not high price. That's just the average price, right? And that's about a $430,000 increase in value over what it is right now. But that's the pace run. That's the clip. And I anticipate, as long as rates are low, and as long as our government, gets lazy and remains lazy about raising interest rates, they've backed themselves into a corner. They have no way to repair this other than to slowly just add 25 basis points at a time. We know it's coming next year, but housing's out of control, and the guys in charge have no idea how to contain it. And this does, John, it poses substantial societal risk, especially as incomes are barely creeping ahead at all. Like, we've had very little in the way of increased wages overall, especially in Ontario. But real estate, it floats on a rolling sea of leverage. So, I mean, that leverage continues to expand. People are finding creative ways to get larger mortgages, to get more lending, to borrow against their family's wealth. I mean, this is what's happening most of the time. Parents are taking out HELOCs or lines of credit against the value of their current homes, which they no longer owe a mortgage on. And this is what's happening. This is the worst situation I could think of that could transpire. And real estate agents out there, God bless them, but they have no idea. They're just making their living. They're just selling, doing their thing, making a good living right now. But inventory is drying up drastically all over the place, not just because it's winter, but it's drying up because if you sell, you got to buy. And most people know that if you were to sell your house, odds are you're not going to be able to afford another one. So there's no let's move north, honey, anymore, because prices have flattened. So ultimately, you got to think differently when it comes to your strategy, right?
Okay, well, okay, let's talk about thinking differently then. Someone's like, oh, wait, I got the idea, Darren. I own my home. I might have a mortgage, but for the most part, I own it. I've been in here for a few years. I made some equity. I got some good money on my side. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of it, and I've got the gold key to the crapper. I'm going to go rent. That's the secret sauce nobody else has ever thought of. I mean, is that a good strategy to go out and rent something instead?
Well, typically I would say yes. Typically I would say that is a fantastic strategy. I mean, listen, when the percentage of our housing market was, in terms of those that are investors in the market, was below 10%, I would say that is the best strategy you could have. And I know a lot of people who do it. But now that investing in homes makes up about 20% of our total economy, not a great idea, because it's driven rents way higher, right? You want to move north of the city and rent an entire house. Just 2 years ago, I'll give myself as an example. I live I live on the edge of York Region in Simcoe, in that area. And you could 2 years ago rent an entire house, brand new home, or something fairly new. Not a finished basement, but 4 bedrooms, the whole family could live in there. You have the whole house to yourself. You could rent that for, including utilities, around $2,500. And now you're lucky if you can get that house for $35,000 to $4,000 a month, if one is even available. There's literally nothing available. Bachelor pads are renting in the Toronto core for around $2,500, which is basically 4 walls, John. There's no segregated bedroom. You put up your own walls, or make your own walls. New renters, especially the younger generation, they're being squeezed hard. And we got to think differently, because if it's squeezing them, this goes right up to the top, and eventually it's going to crash the economy, and housing will be exactly what does it too, John. Mark my words. I know it's coming. I'm prepared for it, but I want to make sure our listeners are too. They need to take, wage earners right now in the core. they have to, in order to afford that 2 to 2,500 bachelor part, or, God bless them, they want a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom at 3,000 a month in the core. They need to be making, probably in the neighborhood of around $60,000 to $70,000 a year, which God bless them if they're in their 20s and they can do fantastic. But just to qualify for a decent 1 or 2 bedroom rental. So you imagine what you need in the core for a 4 bedroom right now. It's ridiculous. But none of this, John, none of it is remotely normal. It occurs during the umpteenth wave of this slimy little pathogen called COVID. And, it's got higher mortgage rates are propelling buyers, and realtors are begging reluctant owners to list. But with prices out of control and rents following, the inventory freeze worsens, and it's going to happen. And so 2022 will be just about that, stalemates on the amount of homes available versus the amount that that real estate agents are trying to bring to the market. We just are not going to see the inventory available, which means for the better part of next year, you're going to watch prices continue to rise higher. Because like I said, you have to be able to sell and repurchase. If by the time you sell your house, the new house rises within, 50 days, by the time you close your house in that 90-day closing, you're already going to have to pay more for everything. You're already going to have to pay more to move in, more tax, more everything. So ultimately, yeah, let's be prepared. Let's make certain that we have a good quality wealth strategy first and foremost, that's diversified, that focuses in on the good undervalued assets like gold and silver, that gives us a ton of insurance for our existing wealth, and that is going to grow it as these climactic moments continue to come to the forefront.
It's interesting you say that too. That time in between the the one you're leaving to the one you're moving into, if it's lengthy enough, and as you say, if the price of the house goes up significantly, let's hope you're approved for that extra increase. Because if not, man, you've got a problem from the bank too. That's going to get you in a whole lot of hot water. But okay, so let's be prepared. We should do that. And one way, what we tout on this show, the whole genesis of this show, is getting proper assets and getting their wealth to grow. So silver and gold, good way to do it. So how do we get that strategy happening with Delta Harbour?
Well, it starts with a phone call or head over to our website. I mean, I like the phone call. I'm traditional. I'm old fashioned that way, John. I like to talk to people. And since we don't have any obligation or pressure, it's just a conversation about what they expect or what questions they have initially about gold and silver, and just start the learning process. If we've learned nothing over the 20 years we've been in the market, we've learned that patience is a virtue. And there is no way you can tell me that even with silver and gold being very undervalued, that there's a rush here, that there's a need to take this in and consume it and have silver tomorrow. You take your time, you do your due diligence, you speak to the people you trust, you educate yourself a little bit, which we can help to do. And then if you want to go online and make a purchase, small purchase to start the ball rolling, go to our e-store. That's easy to do. You can do a direct purchase, which is just a phone call away. We'll set up an account and you can have the product delivered home to you, or put in storage for increased liquidity, insurance, to be able to buy and sell by phone. You can put it into a registered accounts. We have those available, which means you can have gold and silver in your TFSA or RSP, or you can use our bulk bullion account, which will allow you to get exposure to gold and silver, to have audited holdings in your account, but to pay a lot less than you would if you were deciding to take a specific 100-ounce bar of silver or 10-ounce bar of silver or 1-ounce bar of gold, because we just put a whole bunch of silver and gold into the account, and then we allocate it to the clients. So they pay a lot less in premiums. In that account, we have lots of 1,000-ounce silver bars and bigger gold bars, kilo bars, and things of that nature that we use. So those are lots of options there. And it starts just by going to the website and educating yourself. And that's easy to do, deltaharbor.com.
The word debt was mentioned already in this show, but we'll drill down deeper into that as it relates to gold and silver ownership as well. But we've got to take a short break. In the meantime, 1-877-323-GOLD is the way to reach out to Darren and the team. And as mentioned, deltaharbor.com, Harbor with a U, this investment, all about you. We'll continue right here, Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. This is Hard Money here on Sauga 960. Good to have you along with us this week. Darren Long is also giving you all the info you need to make that wise investment if you've never dabbled or dipped your toe in the world of precious metals. Physical, actual metal you can hold in your hand and drop in your foot, silver and gold. this is the place to do it. I want to reach out to Darren, 1-877-323-GOLD, online, deltaharbor.com. Same goes if you're checking them out on social media outlets like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. Delta Harbor with you. Okay, debt. You mentioned already earlier in the show. We know it's grown dramatically over the last 2 years. It's going to continue to do so. People can be in some serious hot water, especially here in Canada. But how does that relate to the ownership of silver and gold there?
Well, just think about it from a practical standpoint, John. I mean, what happens when our government, our banks, and everyone encourages debt? When they allow housing prices to go sky high with their brutal financial policies, when we see everywhere we turn that the assets we want to own and the material items we want to own are going higher in price, and it encourages us to use more debt, what happens? I mean, we become lab rats, John, and that's what we are right now. We're lab rats, and the biggest experiment in modern times that Canadians has ever been part of, right? Remember, I said last week's show, Trudeau, our brilliant prime minister, what an idiot this guy is on track to lead us and be the first prime minister ever in 7 years, right? I mean, because he's got 2 terms, so 7 years, he's amassed more debt than all of the previous nearly 150 years of prime ministers combined. And this should scare the living daylights out of everyone that listens to this show, because ultimately the government has said it's going to spend an additional 80 billion just recently, and they're coming off of a year in which they spent just over 350 billion in annual deficit. The national debt in our country is 1.1 trillion plus, and it will soon have doubled under this idiot's leadership. We have Omicron now, and you look across the board, we've got provinces that are dealing with major situations, and nobody even pays attention because, of course, it's the holiday season, so we're out shopping and doing all of our blissful things to avoid the post holiday season guilt when we put our heads in the sand and, gosh, we're forced to think about our wealth. But right now, look at BC. Their infrastructure is a mess after these floods. We've got a busted supply chain that we've talked about over the last little while. Inflation's running way hotter. We're at a 30-year high and rising. It's a U.S. election year, and Americans are getting very protectionist again. And again, that's going to pay real big dividends when we've got this Trudeau running the country who does not have the cojones to get out there and push people around a little bit. I mean, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. I'm sorry to say it. I don't encourage it myself, but I mean, ultimately, if you don't stand up and have a voice, you're going to get railroaded. And that's what the U.S. does to Canada constantly. And now we all have to get 3 doses of this, and maybe 4, maybe 5 for protection. We don't know what's coming down the pipes, but every time we talk about a variant or a situation like that, the debt gets worse. Of course it does, because they're going to put out more programs to support the people who are whining about it in the first place. And ultimately, we know this is business slowdown. We know that we can't have a normal functioning economy, so debt continues to rise. I mean, where do you think this goes? This is the setup, John. The moments leading up to when the Titanic strikes the bloody iceberg and starts taking on water. This is it. We're here. This is the moment in which the Canadian economy stands on the precipice of a very important point in which we're going to look back and say we coulda, shoulda, woulda, but we didn't. So instead of lose half of your wealth when recession hits or when 2008 financial crisis repeats itself, why not be protected against it? Why not have as much diversification and balance in your portfolio as you can possibly get? It's the key to go, right? And ultimately, I think that that's where we're heading. We're going to see the Titanic get hit by the iceberg, and I hope this boat stays afloat this time around. But I'm fearful, John. 2022 is going to be a difficult year for me to say good things about the financial stability of our economy.
Second year of the decade. Yeah. Well, I mean, why has the housing market not been hammered, back into reality by politicians in this new decade? I mean, valuations have blown past every measure of affordability, still hanging out there.
John, they know, and we all know. Residential real estate is an investment class now, not a place to live. The financialization was basically made complete when the feds allowed 5% down payments. When that happened, that brought out the hungry, greedy investor into the fold, and that people use their RSP money to buy properties. They backstopped the banks, and they oversaw the drop in mortgage prices down to, well, it was below 2%, but in and around that 1.99-2% range now. And that's when the fiction really took hold that everybody could and should own, and that houses always go up. I mean, biggest living myth of this day and age, that our house prices are going to go nowhere but up. A corollary to that was that the government will never let rates rise. Plus, they'll do everything they can to keep the party going. And the result, real estate is now 20% of our total economy, as I said earlier in the show. During the 2008-9 financial crisis, the credit crisis, and again during COVID, interest rates were allowed to plunge, and borrowing was encouraged as part of the economic recovery. In essence, what politicians have done is they've offloaded risk in order to leverage home buyers. And people took the bait, John, and they take it in droves, right? Just imagine if what happened in 2006 in the United States were to occur here. I mean, nobody thinks about that, right? Because we kind of got through that unscathed, so to speak. Prices dropped on the whole, nationally, across the board in the US. Home prices fell 32%, 32 friggin' percent. What happens right now if that occurs? How many people are going to be underwater? In certain areas, in the more sensitive areas, Florida, Nevada, all of the southern states, the housing values fell as much as 70%. It was utter disaster, all in the cause of boosting the home ownership rate, right? Stocks aren't going to help when that happens. They're merely part of the plan. You need something tangible besides real estate. You should own physical gold and silver to balance, diversify your wealth, and continue on to protect yourself, to have it for your family, to grow your wealth. That's all part of why we do this show every week, and why I myself own physical gold and silver.
Again, the number in between 1-877-323-GOLD to reach out to Darren, deltaharbor.com. Solid point, man, for sure. It's a scary minefield for sure. Now, we've witnessed the up and down movements of both gold and silver, but both metals have proven worthy on so many separate occasions in the past, 2 decades, 20 years. So obviously both have made some serious returns on investors. People don't want to admit it all the time, but it's there. You can read about it.
They do, and most people don't. Last week, we talked on the show about the fact that only about 1 to 2% of globally managed assets have exposure to gold and silver.
Right.
But ultimately, the truth is that gold and silver have produced fantastic returns, compounded returns. If you look at gold as an example, it's only had 2-3 losing years in 20 years. And although some years were as high as 30+%, some might have only been 5 or 6%. So ultimately, that balance overall has gold moved up about 600% or so since I started in this industry, anyways. And that's around a 10% per year compounded annual return. So ultimately, that's what we're focused on. That's what we want. Silver, like gold, is also 485, 490% higher, which is roughly just between 9.5 to 10% compounded annually. And neither of these totals takes into consideration, as you said, any buying or selling that gets done when those peaks hit. And we've not had very many. We don't day trade gold and silver, at least we don't suggest it. But ultimately, there have been climactic moments in which, if you were an investor and you bought and sold some silver and gold, you made away like a banshee. You made a ton of money, a huge return on your investment, and continue to do so to this day. So absolutely, it's an investment class in and of to itself. It's a top tier investment class, or held by central banks around the world. And if your banker or your planner or your advisor doesn't know enough about it, I suggest you educate them. Tell them what they're up against and why they should have it for all their clients.
And we'll do that after a break. How to actually get it into your account as well. 1-877-323-GOLD and online to deltaharbor.com. Short break, coming back with more right here on Sauga 960. Welcome back. Hard Money is the show. Darren Long is here once again, educating you on the value of gold and silver, why you need part of it, physical, actual metals in your portfolio. You'll want to do that. 1-877-323-GOLD. Make that non-committal phone call. Just get educated over a few minutes. Have a chat with one of the folks at Delta Harbour, and they will set you straight and open your eyes on the potential of this part of the portfolio, which you may have not dabbled in yet, and you should. It is high time you do so. DeltaHarbor.com, Harbor with a U, because this investment is all about you. You can watch these video casts, not just on radio, but you can see them on their YouTube channel. Just search Delta Harbor. They have their own channel and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as well. But yeah, let's talk about that, Darren. Getting some gold and silver in our hands. And I don't mean that, as an expression. I mean, physically getting gold and silver into your hands, your palms of your hands with Delta Harbor. How do you do that?
Well, John, we talked earlier in the show about just a direct purchase from the online e-store. Easy to do, comfort of your own home, lots of value there, and multiple product options. You can do that. There's a very easy platform to use on our website. You can also put it into storage. If instead of taking it home, you feel it might be a security risk, or you want increased liquidity to be able to buy and sell by phone call to amass a larger amount so that it's not really safe at home, then we have a storage option for you as well. In addition to that, as I said earlier, you can put it into a registered account. Maybe you have a pension that's dead in the water and you just want to get that money and put it to work in a better arena. Or if you have space in your TFSA, or if you have an RSP that's at another institution and it's doing nothing for you, bring it over. We'll do it for you, and we'll put it gold and silver in there along with you. These are self-directed accounts, so they're easy to do and set up. And our partner in this is Questrade. And the last option is the bulk bullion, which you can get exposure to both gold and silver. And you have the option, but not the obligation. The option, though, if you want, to finance up to 80% of your purchase, which means either you can hold back up to 80% of the money you were going to spend, or you can get, if you are in a position to take advantage of this, you get up to 80% more bullion for the same price, which keeps your cost extremely low while maintaining the basic idea of owning physical gold and silver. And that means right now, as an example, when we talk about the option of financing your metals purchase, you could own 1,000 ounces of silver for as little as about 8,000 Canadian. You would be controlling roughly $30,000 worth of silver, but your outlay would be only roughly 8,000. You get to make the decisions about buying and selling, and you get to profit from that. And if you were to see silver move up about $6.50 to $7 to about $30, somewhere it's been multiple times over the last number of years, you double your money in this approach. And I love this method, and it makes ownership affordable, and it can be done with gold also. But that's just another option there, John, as well, to use the bulk bullion option where you could, if you'd like to, finance your purchase.
It's a great system, great option for people, as are the registered accounts. I really love that one. And as you increase your TFSA room very shortly in the new year, some more room for gold and silver for sure. Early at the top of the show, you mentioned our economy right here in this country. We always talk about the States and the rest of the world, but right here as well. What lies ahead, do you think, in the next year? Because we're close to 2022.
Higher rates for sure. We can start there. Interest rates are going higher. We are going to pay more to borrow and more to finance our existing debt. Mortgage rates going higher. If you got variables, go see the people you trust. I personally locked in on everything I own real estate wise a while back, and I'm holding steady. For investors, stocks will react negatively to higher rates. They always do, but you can bank on the fact that they will get over it in the long run. So again, I would say talk to your professionals. My personal approach is to be as balanced and diversified as possible. I think that's a good approach to have. And then you lighten the load in some areas while increasing the load in others, such as gold and silver. I think gold and silver in kind, respond in kind with stocks, only if there is a shuttering, that is, of stock portfolios and a move into cash. And into the past, of course, gold and silver have been the only place from time to time where there are profits. So a lot of times investors are taking those profits off the table, which explains why from time to time gold and silver will also pull back. But these represent great opportunities. Last year, price of silver was as high as $30 an ounce. It's pulled back, and as it prepares for its next move forward, it's allowing you as the listener, as the consumer, as the investor, whatever take or approach you want to call it, to consume this product, to own this product at much lower prices. And I love it. So we've had a year of consolidation here in 21, and it's been awesome. We've been up there in the 27, 28, 29 range, but we've been as low as the 21 and change range. So it's been a nice year to just to cost average and do a lot of purchasing like that. So I think that is going to slowly fall off the table as prices move higher here. I believe that that'll be part of what we would call the best approach going forward. So there's a lot of tumultuous activity that I see happening in the economy going forward, the threat of recession is there, John, for sure. No matter what people want to think, no matter how great housing looks, it's 20% of our economy. And if it was to crash because higher interest rates are coming, then our economy crashes. That's it. That's the bottom line. Inflation is killing us. Purchasing power is what we're losing, but ultimately that's where we go from there.
Yeah, you did mention the increase in interest rates. People are going to borrow. It's going to cost them more to borrow. So what about borrowers? What do you think about that?
Yeah, for borrowers, not good. 5-year mortgages have already surged far above the 1.5% that was available from brokers last summer. And there's more of that to come. As we all know, interest rates are going higher. Variable rate mortgages have historically saved a ton of money for borrowers, but they are going to tick higher with every central bank increase. As we know, interest rates go higher, so does borrowing. If you want stability, lock in. Much of the same for lines of credit as well. Most lines of credit are secured by real estate or not, are variable rate demand loans tied to the charter bank prime rate. So that's going to rise and that's going to cost more. Prime will increase over time as the Bank of Canada moves, and could be close to 4.5% by this time in 2023, just wow. A couple of years away. And that's a huge move. So perspective, it means, let's say you have a $250,000 line of credit, which is interest only payments because you need it right now. You're investing, doing whatever. If you borrow to invest, well done. Great. It's tax deductible. Payments are tax deductible from taxable income. If you borrow to finish the basement, well, sorry, but the payments are going to double.
Ouch. How threatening is that going to be?
It's going to hurt for sure. No
what about
nobody prepares?
The flip side, I mean, we'll break here in a minute, but let's get started on the other side of that. What about savers? I mean, do they continue to get the beat down in 2022 or what?
Well, I'd say I think we use the term a bit of relief, the phrase a bit of relief reluctantly, but they will see a bit of relief. I mean, if you're just hellbent on being a saver, GIC and HISA rates will increase along with prime, but this means guaranteed investment certificates will top out around, let's say, 4%, which is a huge jump, but not enough to preserve purchasing power. Inflation will eat that up in a second, right? It's going to nibble away at all of your returns in a registered account together with tax, which will decimate them in a non-registered situation. So they have to be earning literally. I think savers right now need to be focused on trying to incorporate some diversity into that wealth strategy. And they want to try to focus on getting something that will return north of 10% for the time being. Inflation is really harsh right now. And we are a debt-ridden country. There's no way around this point, John. The value of our Canadian dollar and its purchasing power is being destroyed over time by this asset inflation. And all this is more painful because income inflation hasn't kept pace. We're not going to see wage increases. We're not going to see the average Joe Schmo get out there making $15 an hour now jump to $30 an hour. It's not happening. So ultimately, yeah, inflation is going to kill our disposable income. We're going to continue to see with the supply problems, that inflation problem get worse and worse, and we will continue to see government overspending. That's the soup du jour. Debt is going to increase, my friend, and Ottawa will continue to spend. They always do because they think they can buy our way out of this.
Right. We'll talk a little more about that and then get back into the actual investment itself with our last few minutes of the show. But in the meantime, 1-877-323-GOLD is the number. DeltaHarbor.com is the website, Harbor with a U. We'll continue Hard Money on Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. Hard Money. Delta Harbor is where you want to go. The phone call, no problem. 1-877-323-GOLD, DeltaHarbor.com. That's Harbor with you. Get educated about this investment of physical gold and silver, the gold and silver, the type you can look at and store and hold in your hand and buy anytime you would like with a phone call, with the access to the e-store on DeltaHarbor.com. Very simple way to do it from the, as they say, comfort of your own home. You can begin that investment. But we're talking about savers and how they're going to get punished with the, it's just not going to work. Just squirreling money away in GICs or whatever other form. It's not going to keep up with what's coming down the pike in 2022, is it, Darren?
No, I don't think it is, John. And unfortunately, most savers will tell you this, if given the truth serum, that they're afraid that the reason they're not putting their money and deploying it out into investable markets beyond GICs or HISAs or things like that is because they're afraid. They're fearful. They don't want to risk losing their money. But what they don't realize is that, say you put 10,000 into a GIC, right now it can buy you, 30 widgets. And a year from now, even despite the fact that the GIC has lost no value, it's increased in value 2 or 3%. it's not going to do well. It's not 2 or 3%. I digress. 1%, if you're lucky, maybe 2%. But ultimately, you're not losing any money; you're gaining it. But what you don't see is the hidden, inflation that eats away at your purchasing power. And unfortunately, that means that where you could once buy 30 widgets, even a year later, now you can only buy 28. And a year after that, only 25. Yet you've never lost a penny. On paper, you've seen your money increase. You had 10, now it's worth 11. Now it's worth 12. Ultimately, that's the sad state of affairs that we're in right now, where it's the silent killer of wealth, that inflation. So you got to think outside the box. You have to diversify your wealth. You have to own quality assets, the ones we're talking about, gold, silver, through Delta Harbour Assets is one way to do that. And you got to get above and beyond that, right? I mean, right now, new home buyers, think about this, John. New home buyers right now are devoting around half to 2/3 of or more of the incomes that they have towards their housing costs. Half to 2/3. So that leaves them between half to 1/3 of available income to buy all the other things needed, let alone talk about start to raise a family or have a baby or, do other things with your life. I mean, gone are the good days right now for the moment. So ultimately, we have to make wise decisions. And I think most people that are listening to this show right now feel comfortable going online. They'll buy stocks online. They'll talk to their brokers and financial planners and everything like that. They'll do online. So of course, we set up our store so that it's online.
1-877-323-GOLD. That is the number. If any of this scares you, that's okay. There's a bit of a parachute if you haven't explored that. And it could be for you, the world of precious metals, physical metals with Delta Harbour, deltaharbor.com, by the way, as you do that. I would assume, just based on your last comment, that a good first step, the first step will be talking to you or a member of the team there about how they should approach this whole investment before they lay down a single penny. But once they start doing that, a good way to introduce them, I guess, would be the e-store, right?
The e-store is a great place to start. It's simple to use, lots of product choices on there. And like any other e-store you would use to buy clothing or even food nowadays, it's simple and easy to use. Payment options there, ease of transaction. The bill payment option is one that's very, very popular. You can set us up as a bill payment option with your bank or credit union. And that makes it very comfortable to do so from your own home, on a weeknight or over the holidays coming up here now. But it is, again, just a wonderful, simple thing that we added to the website that allows you to take that first step and to get your toes a bit wet. And remember, when you're comparing pricing, I will remind everyone, lots of our products are much cheaper and in some cases extraordinarily cheaper than our competitors. But pricing isn't the only thing that we take into consideration when we built Delta Harbour Assets. People should be aware that they're getting the quality of contact and connection with our firm, the expertise of our team, and that every account has two, not one, but two individuals that will take responsibility for helping you with any questions you have, your account at any time, whether you want to add a new product or whether you want to diversify your holdings and get some gold when you only had silver. All of those questions can be answered by any of those team members, but you will have specifically two that get put onto every single account. So when we're talking apples to apples, we better make sure that that's the case, because I find that most firms that do what we do are in our realm. They're just a one-stop shop, and you don't really get the expertise that we hand out there. And it's important to us to connect with every single client, John.
It's funny, all the years that you've been doing radio, you and I have been doing this show for a long time, specifically you. People have gotten to know you pretty well and talk about the merits of owning physical gold and silver, but they often wonder, how easy is it to actually buy it? And what am I buying?
Well, it's super simple. Like anything you invest in, you should be educated. All products we own and sell are from recognized mints or gold and silver fabricators around the world. These are bars and coins that are not deemed collectible. They are not numismatic. They are not there because they have, a picture of Superman on the face of them. These are coins that are considered what we call bullion, and they are for investment purposes. And even though sometimes given as gifts, That is primarily why you buy and hold these assets. They do not have pretty pictures of Marvel characters, they said, or Winter Olympic sports on them or anything like that. This is for the purpose of wealth and investment. And when owning gold and silver for the purposes of investment, there are a couple of details you'll always look out for, John. And it's something that's great to remind our listening public. When you're buying gold and silver for the purposes of investment, gold should be 99.99% pure. Silver should be 99.95% pure or higher. And you can find that product here at Delta Harbour Assets. It should be in a standard form of measurement and consistent across the board, meaning a 100-ounce bar of silver should always weigh 100 ounces when you get it and receive it. And that we take the guesswork out of it is we've recognized the importance of knowing that it's very tough and people are fearful and they don't take that first step to come and find out more. So we put it all in front of them so that they can go to the website or talk to us and get an idea of what it is they're actually buying when they step into the realm of physical gold and silver bullion.
Last minute of the show, affordability and value. What does it mean to you?
Well, it means, first off, great question, John. I always ask myself, is something that I'm looking to purchase valued at a fair price, above a fair price? Is it affordable and of value, or is it overpriced and not of value? Am I buying because I have a fear of missing out? I mean, I'm always questioning my reasons for wanting to own something. Is it a snap judgment? Am I on a cruise ship coming home and I'm at the duty-free shop and I got to buy that little hula dancer because I know my cousin is going to love it? Ultimately, I'm always talking to myself about that. Housing is a perfect example. We spent a lot of time on it today's show talking about affordability. It has lost its affordability. As an investor, this is a hallmark sign of reasons not to own something. Housing is no longer undervalued. It is overbought and overvalued. And disposable material items, are they necessary? Do I need that third car, that trip to Europe this summer? Am I investing in affordable assets? Where is the price of gold and silver relative to where it was 10 years ago or a year ago or 2 years ago? That's the kind of expertise that we offer at Delta Harbour Assets, and gold and silver are examples of extremely undervalued, especially silver, undervalued assets that present with tons of long-term potential. In other words, what we like to say, John, set it and forget it. And I know we're coming to the close of our show right now, so I want to thank everyone. Hopefully they have a wonderful, wonderful break. We'll talk to them next week. Have a great Christmas, and always remember to take care of those that are less fortunate than you by sharing and giving to the food banks in your local community.
You bet. We'll be back next week for the 2021 wrap up. But in the meantime, 1-877-323-GOLD. Reach out by the phone and go to deltaharbor.com. This is Hard Money, has been on Sauga 960.